What's up, Sharks? This is Mr. O. This is going to be a very fast flip notes today. It's going to be focused on just on weathering. Remember, you can pause me at any time to keep up, and let's get started. First of all, the top of your sheet says main ingredient of soil. If you don't know already, that main ingredient is weathered rock particles. Second thing, it says, how does that main ingredient get into soil? I find it very obvious. You may not. It's through the process of weathering, hence weathered rock particles. Later in this notes, we're going to talk about the different things of weathering. So let's first define weathering. The most basic definition of weathering I can find is the process that breaks down rocks on the Earth's surface. So this would be anything above the continental crustal plates. And this is weather and climate that act on the rocks that are found in landforms to break them down and to get them back into the soil. The most important factor, or it's actually factors, that's an error on your notes, for weathering, there's two things. Type of rock and the climate. So type of rock, there's three types of rock. You have sedimentary, igneous, and metamorphic. Depending on those types of rocks, some are harder or softer than others. For example, sedimentary is by far the easiest rock to break down, where metamorphic would be the hardest. And then climate, depending on the actual weather you're having at the time. Places with more rain weather faster, places with less rain don't. Places with high winds weather fast, and places that don't have high winds don't. So it depends on the climate and the type of rock together. It depends on how fast things will weather. And this is not an immediate process. Weathering does take time. Everything with soil takes time. It takes thousands of years for soil to form and regather, so it does take time. You'll see this chart in the bottom of your notes. It's going to be kind of hard to see the lines. I apologize about the print. But the top box, which is bigger, will be where you put your definition for each. And then the below boxes are you're going to put examples of each of those types of weathering. So let's start with mechanical weathering. Mechanical weathering is physically breaking down rocks into smaller pieces. I always act as if like you smashing something with a hammer. You're physically doing it. Physical means mechanical or movement. That's where mechanical comes from. 5 examples I'm going to use of this. These are not the only 5, but I think the most common 5 for you is ice wedging. If you know anything about a wedge, like a door wedge, ice actually gets into rocks, wedges in there, freezes, and breaks apart the rocks. Abrasion, which is like something getting roughed upon, meaning wind abrasion is a very common one. Like in the desert, for example, when the wind blows, sand's blowing with it, the sand's hitting another rock to help break it down. Heating and cooling. Often you see the sidewalks in your neighborhood that have cracks in them. They have cracks because over the winter they get cold, over the summer they get hot, they expand, they contract, which causes cracking, which also will break things down. Plant roots. Plants tend to grow roots. Those roots tend to dig into rocks. Over time, those roots can break apart the rocks. And the last is animals. Animals do have an impact on rocks. Their habitats that they live in could help break down rocks as well. So that's mechanical weathering, physical ways that things get weathered. Let's look at the other side of your chart. Chemical weathering. It breaks down rocks through a chemical change, meaning it's not physically doing it, it's using chemicals to change the makeup of the rock. 5 of those examples I'm using is water. Water can dissolve things, and oxygen, which can oxidize things. Water and oxygen together could also create rust. It's called oxidation. Carbon dioxide could also lead in the oxidation process, which you're physically rusting the rock, which will weaken it. Just like if you see something that is metal outside, for example, a car or a swing set that has rust on it, that metal has changed from what it was to something new by a chemical change. The most common one and the fastest one is acid rain. This is why we're going to do a lab on this tomorrow based on what acid's effect does on rocks. And the last one is plant roots. Now you see plant roots is on both sides of the chart. During mechanical, the roots actually get into the rocks, but plant roots also release acid. And that acid could lead to chemically changing the rocks that those roots are around. So that's chemical weathering. Physical is mechanical, chemicals, literally chemical changing it via chemicals. Important note on the bottom, You should know that mechanical and chemical weathering usually are taking place at the same time, meaning rocks are being exposed to both mechanical forces and chemical forces to help break them down. Keep in mind, breaking down a rock is not a very short process. It takes a long time. At the bottom of your notes, I want you to write that shark science are by far the best there is. Thank you.